Blood pooled in slow, deliberate drops from the human's back, each one a quiet accusation against the polished floor of Outpost Kalis. His body sagged forward, arms braced on trembling palms, forming a crude arch over 3 small Zenthari children who huddled beneath him like fledglings beneath a storm-broken wing. Steam still rose from the wounds where energy blades had punched through flesh and bone, cauterizing as they cut, sealing pain inside instead of letting it bleed out. Around him, chaos still crackled, shouts in 6 languages, the whine of plasma fire, the acrid stench of scorched wiring. But here, in this tiny pocket of ruin, there was only silence and breath. Shallow, ragged, stubborn breath. It turned out courage didn't roar, it gasped. 3 days earlier, none of it had been possible. Not the blood, not the silence. Not the way the entire Confederation would soon hold its breath, waiting for this man to open his eyes. Back then, Outpost Kalis hummed with the dull rhythm of routine. Cargo manifests scanned, trader disputes broken up, transit lanes monitored. Security Officer Varn moved through it all like clockwork. 12 cycles of service etched into the set of his mandibles, the precision of his stride, the cold calculus behind his compound gaze. Phyrexians like him trusted logic, not luck. Cause and effect were law. Risk was a matrix, not a mystery. That morning he'd made an exception. Lyra, his daughter, bright-eyed and curious, had begged to see the station during his shift. What harm could it do, he'd thought, the famous last words of fools echoing in the back of his mind, even as he dismissed them. She clung to his lower manipulator arm now, her tiny carapace pressed against his side, watching the strange ballet of alien life swirl past. A Netherian merchant haggling over synth spice, a Julian child mid-tantrum over denied candy, a lone human freighter pilot idling near a textile stall. Joran Elms, average height, dark hair threaded with gray, wore the standard-issue jumpsuit of independent cargo runners like armor against notice. Nothing about him suggested he'd soon rewrite the galaxy's understanding of sacrifice. He looked tired, that was all. Just another spacer killing time before his next jump. Then came the first explosion. The concussive blast hit like a fist to the chest, knocking beings off their feet and sending cargo containers skidding across the concourse. Red emergency lights bathed everything in blood-hued urgency. Screams erupted, not just fear, but disorientation, the sound of order shattering. Varn's training snapped into place, secondary arms reaching for his sidearm, primary limbs curling protectively around Lyra, but the crowd surged like a panicked tide, pressing him backward, cutting him off from his post. That's when he saw them, the 3 Zenthari younglings near the central fountain, frozen in terror. Their teacher lay motionless nearby, green ichor pooling beneath her carapace, and striding toward them, energy blades humming with lethal charge, were 2 militants from the Vex Coalition, and between them, Joran Elms, unarmed, unarmored, unafraid. He didn't shout, didn't posture, just stepped into the space where death was meant to land, spreading his arms like he was blocking a doorway only he could see. Varn's mind stuttered. What is this idiot doing? The first blade came down in a vicious arc. Joran twisted, not away but into it. The weapon punched through his upper chest with a sickening sizzle. Steam curled from the wound. He didn't fall. The second strike caught him in the side, the third in the back. Still, he stood. 8 blades later, he collapsed, not in defeat, but in completion. His body formed a bridge. The children beneath him were untouched, alive. He wasn't a soldier, Varn would say later, voice rough with something he couldn't name. He was just there. And in a universe built on calculation, that changed everything. The medbay lights hummed like distant stars, steady, indifferent, But the air inside Surgical Bay 3 crackled with something else. Not hope, not yet. Something sharper. Anticipation, like the moment before lightning strikes twice in the same place. Cortez's eyes stayed open this time. No fluttering, no slipping back into the dark. He blinked once, slow and deliberate, as if testing whether reality would let him stay. His fingers twitched against the sterile sheet. The monitors beside him chirped a fragile symphony of survival. Outside the observation window, the warriors didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They just stood, taller, straighter, as though his waking had realigned their spines. Commander Vask's mandibles clicked softly, a sound Toth now recognized as reverence. Captain Rexith touched the corroded metal box on the table like it was an altar. General Thorne exhaled through his nose, the kind of breath men take when they've been holding it for days. Toth stepped inside first, boots clicking against the deck. He pulled the chair close, ignoring the ache in his thoracic joints from sleeping upright for 3 cycles. "You're awake," he said, stating the obvious because sometimes truth needed to be spoken aloud before it could be believed. Cortez turned his head, slow, wincing, and managed a cracked smile. "Barely." His voice sounded like gravel dragged through static. "How many kids?" "All 4, Toth said, Priya included." Cortez closed his eyes again, but not to sleep, to breathe, to let that fact settle into his bones like ballast. "Good," he whispered. "That's good." Nurse Brell entered then, her silver-white feathers fluffed tight with tension. She scanned the readouts, adjusted a drip, and shot Toth a look that said, "You're pushing your luck." But she didn't make him leave. Maybe she understood. Some debts couldn't be repaid with credits or commendations. Only presence. Then came the visitors. Not reporters, not politicians, warriors. One by one they filed in. Not to interrogate, not to exploit, but to witness. To confirm with their own eyes that the man who'd taken 8 blades for alien children was still breathing. Each carried silence, like a gift. Vask placed a Corian honor token on the bedside, a sliver of blackened battle steel forged in the heart of a dying star. "For the one who stood when logic demanded flight," he rumbled. Rexith set down her box. "My ship's hull. It saved my squad. Now it guards your story." The Ulan monk laid prayer crystals that glowed faint amber at Cortez's pulse points. "Your pain is seen," he murmured. "Your choice, remembered." Cortez tried to sit up, failed, winced, laughed anyway, a dry, broken sound. "I'm not a shrine," he rasped. I'm a guy who ships synth cotton and argues with customs bots." "You are both now," Toth said quietly. "And neither will ever be enough to explain what you did." Cortez looked at him, really looked. His human eyes, those unsettling, forward-facing predator eyes, suddenly clear. "Would you have done it?" he asked. "If it was human kids? If you were the only one there?" Toth didn't hesitate. "Yes." Then, softer. "But I would have calculated the odds first. You didn't." "Didn't have time," Cortez said. "Saw the blades, saw the kids. My body moved before my brain caught up." He paused, throat working. "Turns out humans are built to protect, even when it doesn't make sense." That night, alone in the dimmed bay, Toth watched Cortez stare at the ceiling, tracing the cracks in the overhead panel like they held answers. The Dean Cortez would receive the Star of Dean Cortez, would receive the Star of Valor, the highest civilian honor, rarely given, never to a freighter pilot. The citation read, "For choosing empathy over survival in the face of annihilation." Cortez groaned when he heard, "I don't want a medal. I want to go home." "You are home," Toth said. Cortez looked at him, confused. "Not Earth," Toth clarified. "Here, where you're needed, where you changed something." By day 7, the The song had reached the outer colonies. Children sang it in creches and academies. Warriors played it before missions, not as anthem, but as reminder. Courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, human, unarmed. On day 10, Priya returned with her parents. She didn't bring gifts this time, just herself. She climbed onto the chair, leaned close, and whispered, "Mama says you're going to be famous forever." Cortez winced. "I hate forever. But I like you," she said, earnest. "So I'll visit, every time you dock." He touched the stone at his throat. "Deal." They released him on day 14. "Too soon," Nurse Brell insisted, but Cortez refused another scan, another needle, another hour under the weight of awe. He walked, slowly, leaning on Toth's shoulder, through the concourse where it had happened. The fountain had been repaired, the scorch marks scrubbed away. But everyone knew, everyone saw. At the airlock of the steady hand, Cortez turned. "Tell Priya I'll bring her earth candy next run, the kind that makes your teeth hurt." "I will," Toth said. And tell her." Cortez hesitated. "Tell her it wasn't bravery. It was just being there." "That's the bravest part," Toth replied. Cortez nodded, climbed aboard, and sealed the hatch. The ship lifted without fanfare. No escort, no salute, just thrusters firing, docking clamps retracting, and a lone freighter merging into the river of stars. Toth stood on the observation deck long after it vanished. Behind him the station buzzed, merchants hawking, children laughing, announcements echoing in 17 languages. Life restored. But something had shifted, not in the walls, in the air, in the way beings looked at each other now, a little less suspicion, a little more grace. Because somewhere out there, a cargo runner with 8 scars and a carved stone around his neck was flying through the dark, proof that in a universe ruled by logic, the most radical act was still to care, and that, Toth thought, watching the endless flow of ships, was a story worth telling.